Hi guys, welcome back to Kristen and Katie Read. I'm Kristen.
I'm Katie.
And we like to
read.
Today we are going to be discussing and reviewing it
was one of the biggest books of last year for sure.
Yes, one of the most talked about books, I would say, definitely on Bookstagram.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I also saw it in the bookstore. I felt like it was very prominent in Barnes & Noble.
And here it is.
The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by VE Schwab. This is our fourth VE Schwab book that we have read, but really more like the second because the first three are the Darker Shades of Magic
Right,
books.
it's the second world of hers.
Yes.
That we're introduced to.
Yes. So today we are going to do a quick synopsis, spoiler-free, our spoiler-free review and rating, and then the second part we will give you plenty of notice. We're going to dive into the deep plot points and give you
our discussion over what we thought about the book.
Yes. So with that, let's dive into a quick synopsis. We were both convinced we would love this book so much that we both bought a copy. So here we are with a hardback.
I also bought an audiobook.
I'm going to return
that
my
I returned
audiobook.
it.
Let's go ahead and get this out now. Not our favorite book of 2021. So let's start with, what is this book actually about? So this is a book about, what is her actual name? Not Addie.
Adeline.
It's Adeline, not Madeline.
Adeline.
Adeline Larue. She's born in 17-something.
1714.
Well, is that when she's
Adeline.
born? She's a young woman. That's when...
Adeline.
Okay,
Oh,
you have to
okay.
think we already don't even know her name, so it's a rough...
Okay.
It's a rough look.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. She's like 23 in 1714.
She's 23 when she makes this decision?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a young
like
woman.
An old maid in
Yes.
1714.
She's a young woman. Her parents want to get her married off. She wants much more in life. The whole hook of this book is don't pray to the gods that answer after dark. And it's like, ooh, who are these gods?
Which is interesting.
Very
That's
interesting.
Intriguing.
So she does, and she names him Luke. Luke. A French name.
En français.
And makes a deal with him that she grows to regret. So
that she calls a curse.
She calls a curse. So she makes a deal with Luke that if he will, she wants to truly live. And she says when she's done with her soul, he can have it if he saves her in this moment. So very vague. And obviously, as you imagine, the plot unfolds because what he does is grants her basically immortality.
Right.
But anyone who meets her as soon as they leave or turn around forgets her. So is a life truly worth living if no one remembers you? That's kind of...
And if you can't make a mark,
Yeah.
if you can't leave a legacy, is your life a life if you leave nothing behind?
Yes, if no one remembers you and you leave nothing behind, what is the point? That's what Addie has to come to terms with.
I think that's a great synopsis. I think we should just stop there.
Okay, and that's the whole review.
And scene.
Okay, so Katie, let's start with our ratings. What is your Goodreads ratings and your 1 out of 10?
Okay. My Goodreads rating was a 3 out of 5.
I gave it a 4 out of 5, but...
Oh, interesting.
But I would say a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And honestly, the possibility of sliding down further.
I think a 6.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Which is shocked me.
It's interesting because I am grappling. It's hard for me to come to terms with. I don't enjoy the story.
Yes.
But I think that the concepts and the ideas that she's tackling are very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her writing is very beautiful. But I'm bored the whole time.
Agreed. What hooked me the most in this book is VE Schwab's writing is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
She
paints a beautiful picture.
Paints such a picture. She says really simple things in really creative ways that you're just like, oh my gosh, I can totally see that. I feel that. I know that. But the plot was really lacking for me.
Right.
Which knocked it down to a 3 for me.
Yes. I would say at every turn, it's like, oh, okay, so she can't be remembered. So what's the twist? How will she survive? And it's really just exactly what you would think. A girl on her own in the 1700s. Hard life. It's just exactly what you think it's going to be. It's very lonely. It's gets you really in your feels. It's very depressing. I like to read for escapism. I think we both do.
Right.
And I loved escaping into the darker shades of magic world.
Yes.
Loved
if you
it.
haven't watched our Darker Shades of Magic review,
Yes.
we'll link it.
Bubba?
But we love that series. So knowing how much everyone loved this book and that it was VE Schwab, who we already loved.
Right. We're like, oh, how could it
We
be
were like,
that?
this is going to be a slam dunk.
And I guess you would still consider this a fantasy because there's an element of magic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not great with how books are always like genre classified. I would not consider this a fantasy outside of the fact that she lives forever. Like, that's the only magical element, is that Luke is this after dark god, whatever you want to call him. And
She's an after 5 god.
Right, but everything else is about like the actual human experience in life and how depressing it is and how hard it is from the 1700s to present. What? Why would I want to be in that?
Yeah, I told you already, I had to return my audiobook before finishing the book because I was so bummed out listening to it.
It's such a bummer. It really, really
It is. And again, it is written so well.
Mm-hmm.
I even enjoy the way that we like bounce around time.
Yeah. Yes, I like a story that is set currently and in the past, and hopefully like the things you're learning from the past are going to shape your understanding of what your character is doing in the future, and then it's all going to come together in some really cool way. It didn't. Again, it was just her past, and it was just telling it to you so you knew it.
Right, agreed. So
It doesn't give you any information about why she acts the way she acts.
right.
And then for me, I kept wanting there to be this really big payoff, this really big twist. I found every single twist, if you want to call it that, predictable. I called every single twist. The ending, while beautiful, wasn't like, it wasn't exciting. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I already was
Right.
like, oh, well, this is how this will go. And I kept waiting for this deeper element of the supernatural fantasy piece with the god and why he was
Right.
doing what he was doing. And that deeper layer wasn't there. So the things I want shorter are her backstory, and what I want more of isn't there. So I
If
think
this was
that's-
just going to be a straight up like historical fiction book,
yes.
I would have loved it. Like I would have
But that's not how it's presented.
loved her time
Mhm.
in the past, her like going through all these really cool moments in history. She is present for all of these big events in history. You would think like the civil rights movement, or
Mhm.
I mean, I know they kind of talk about some of the things that happened in Paris, but like other big things that are happening
Right.
in the world, missed her.
Yeah,
And it's
her.
like, why are
Or
you living through such
she-
a big part of history
Yeah.
and we're not even getting to see it?
Right, and she clearly was around for that, but it's just like not included in her story. Like,
Right.
and she makes a point, like she wants to impact art and history, and she wants to help out, like as a spy in what is it in France? But she can't really because people keep forgetting her. So she does little things,
Yeah,
but
but
it's
she also
not-
has to steal to survive.
right? So for us, for me personally, it's depressing. I wish that there was less of her backstory. It could have used some editing, even though it's very beautifully written, and I could have used more of reasons behind the dark god and why he was doing what he was doing. And I think that would have made me like it more. And
Absolutely.
when we get to the spoiler section, I have a great idea of how it could have been better, which is
We
a
have
small
a-
little tweak.
We have great stories within this story.
Right, we've already created a better ending in our opinion. So
Again, this is all our opinion. If you are still interested in this book after hearing our opinions, I mean, 3 out of 5, 6 out of 10, that's still a passing grade. So we obviously didn't hate this book. We just found it lacking the things that we would have considered
Yeah.
making it a great book.
if I have a friend who prefers like historical fiction, which I wouldn't even consider this historical fiction, but just
Right.
just a fictional story that doesn't really like fantasy, or anybody who is struggling with depression, and I think this would be a good book to recommend to them.
Absolutely. I think that we've talked about this too. It paints a beautiful picture of
The human
the
complexity.
stresses of a human life.
Yes.
Of the realities and what you have to do to stay alive. Like,
Yeah.
what is the
Day
difference
after
between
day.
what's the difference between living and surviving?
Yes.
What a great story! That great themes, great ideas.
Yeah.
We were just bored.
Yep.
So, I'm ready to spoil things.
So that's who I would recommend it to.
Yes.
Definitely not our cup of tea. Like, I don't think I would ever reread this book.
No,
So
I will never be rereading this book.
that is your spoiler-free review of The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. So if you don't want spoilers, tune out now. If you want all of our great spoilers, they're starting in now. They're starting in 3, 2, 1 right now.
Let's dive into some spoilers. Okay, so obviously Henry remembers her.
Henry remembers her.
So
That's your first twist.
The first twist is that Henry, the bookshop worker, remembers her. That scene, hilarious to me.
But also, like,
The scene
where
where
would
he's
the
like-
story be going if she wasn't about to encounter someone who remembered her?
Right.
I was like, okay, so
Right.
I'm having to read all these freaking people that she wants to have remember her, like the beautiful boy who writes the song, Sarah
The
the
girl.
artist, all these people. And it's like, okay, so we're breaking our hearts with these other people because she's eventually going to run into someone who will remember her, and it's going to be shocking.
Right, and it is. But I do love that he thinks she is a thief.
Yeah,
But then she's like,
no.
I caught you stealing this book yesterday. Are you kidding me right
Yeah.
now? It's like,
They're
that's
meeting it.
funny.
Yeah, that is funny.
And so there are moments like that made me want more from this book.
yeah.
And that was definitely one of them. Figuring out Henry's twist, we both called that he made a deal,
Clearly he made a deal.
obviously.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, here's how I think it could have been better.
Okay.
Luke's new approach at trying to get her to break and relinquish her soul. He somehow is.
Henry. I thought he was going to be Henry too.
And then he's just not. And then he just isn't. And I was like, oh, Luke, you could have been a way badder villain if you did that.
Yes, if the whole thing was that she realized at the end that Henry and Luke are the same person.
Right.
Incredible.
What a great idea that we both had. You
Because
have to think other people.
Other people have that too, because
yeah.
she talks about their resemblance, that they look a lot alike, that he's like the exact opposite of Luke, which I'm like, okay, well, if you are evil and you're acting a certain way and you think being a good person is the exact opposite, cool. So I thought that, I initially thought, okay,
and
Henry making a deal is too obvious.
Right.
So I thought, okay, he's telling her he made a deal, but he's Luke. But he was Henry.
He was Henry the whole time.
And
Agatha the whole time.
It was Agatha. Oh, spoilers.
Spoilers
For
or
a
no
lot of
spoilers.
fiction.
Yikes.
But it was Agatha all along. Yeah, that would have been a great reveal at the end. If she's
fact,
like
not what
bargaining
happens.
for her soul,
Yeah.
and then Luke is like, haha,
Honestly,
Henry.
the fact that Henry's past is recapped in one chapter, his life with his parents, going to seminar or whatever it's called, theology school, I don't know, because he wants to maybe become a rabbi, and then he's like, I'm not really actually religious, so like the struggle, he just never knows where he fits in. Finally finds a girl that he's like, I think she's the one, to find out that she's kind of like, you're just not for me. Like, just getting, I found his backstory so crushing and such a perfect depiction of what someone who has anxiety and depression, like what a true picture of that. It wasn't one event, it's his whole life, his little moments.
Life. And that, yeah, like your life is made up of little moments, and if depression is the overarching part of your life, how debilitating that is.
It's the through line of the whole thing.
Love how he talks about that it rains. Like, it's a rainy day. And I was like,
yes,
that's so beautiful, because
that analogy makes perfect sense, and that he has to like run out of roots because he needs the air and he can't get enough air. Like, it's so well depicted, and it's done in a concise chapter. That's what I needed. I loved that. Addie, obviously, a little bit more than one chapter because it's her book, but
sure.
What could have done with
300 years?
I don't know, 100 less pages of her
Yeah,
backstory.
I could have cut out a lot. There were build-ups that never paid off. There were through lines that never went anywhere, and I think...
And it's like, if we weren't going to dive into more historical events, why even touch on any of them? Just make it about her personal life.
Right.
Or do more historical
Or do
stuff.
more. And it's like she had the opportunity to be Forrest Gump and then wasn't. Where was Addie?
Nobody
She was
knows.
alive for 3 years. It's just
300.
300.
You have to think.
She's alive for 3 whole years. She's goldfish. She's alive for 300 years. And it's just shocking that
all she wanted was to live, and then for her to all of a sudden have this competitive drive to not let Luke win, where it's like, you're just torturing yourself. I don't get it. Like, maybe we're in the minority here, but I was like, just give him your soul, girl. Call it.
So we both agree that we think that this would have been a much more interesting story if either Luke was pretending to be Henry, therefore the true villain.
Yes.
Or
if all of these years have gone by,
yes,
and Addie finally realizes or has to come to terms, like finally sees or he reveals that he is also trapped in some sort of way, because he can only come out at night in the dark, and it's kind of like he's
trapped in this like cycle of
yes,
making
like
deals.
he is trapped too, and we're like, if he could only survive if he like fed on souls, or like he's also trapped and she's trapped. That to me is more beautiful,
right? And that
it's just like,
and that he thought that she would cave within a decade or two,
right?
And that she has been the person to stick it out, survive 300 years into the deal, and for that to be the thing that like bonds them, like she has this like perseverance, and he realizes that he can be like, she like might be an equal to him because he is a god of a kind,
right?
So I mean,
but do we know anything about his
being an immortal
backstory? No.
So that's how we think it could have been a little bit more, for us.
Yes.
It could have been a little bit more interesting. Either of those scenarios. Either the whole thing should have been Luke fucking her whole life up.
Right.
Or her realizing what she had with Henry isn't the real thing, because they both made deals that made them
they were the only option.
Perfect pair. They were the only option. They were like the only person that could be with them.
And I love, like, they could have realized that and still been like friends, or like, you know, that care and bond could have been there. It's just disappointing. It's just like, why is he in the business of souls?
Why?
Just because he wants them? Like, what is it? What does he lose by not getting Addie's soul? What does he get from getting it?
Also, like,
satisfaction?
She's also so hell-bent on him not being able to love. Like,
right.
Like, you don't understand what love is. Sure, he probably doesn't, but wouldn't it have been cool if we'd like looked into why?
Right.
Or how he could change.
Maybe he had been crushed by love in the past. Again,
maybe that's how he got in the business of souls.
That isn't given
Still,
to the right
it's
people.
just really, I think too. So,
what if he made a deal
that he has
deals? Another better idea. And then for me, I don't like that she is also attracted to Luke, but also acts like she hates him. And it's like, she's like, oh, well, I'm playing the long game. In a few hundred years, he won't want me anymore. And so then I'll win. It's like, win what? You both lose. Like, to me, there's no winners in this. They both lose. And to your point, the game's not over. So, like, we watch them do this back and forth. And she has an idea of how she's going to beat Luke, but she's had ideas in the past. Like, so we don't actually know if she wins. And we also don't know if he would take that as a loss. Like, that's her interpretation.
Yes, that's her interpretation of a win.
And it's like,
over
that you're
the devil.
Right. And it's not even like she's being mean to him. They're basically just living their lives together.
As a couple.
It's so bizarre. And then he's like, oh, Addie, you're so clever. You got a boy to write a book about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You found this person that can remember you.
The way he wrote her story is very beautiful.
Yes.
I do feel like we're taking just such a shit on this book. But
right. There were things, what's something
again,
you like?
It's such a beautiful, well, here's something I didn't love, Katie.
Oh my God.
He writes the book, The Invisible Life of Addie Larue.
Yes,
I like that.
Yes.
What I don't like is that it is very specifically described as having a beautiful cursive cover. Okay, the book is named what his book is named, and this is what the cover looks like. This isn't cursive. We couldn't what are we doing here?
That's on the editors. That's on the publishing house.
For stars, because I think that's a really cool idea. But like you said, I wish they were more symbolic of 7 specific things, or like she got a new star when something happened, or like she made a mark on history, or like there's so many different ways that could have been utilized. But it's just like, oh, she has freckles or whatever that look like a constellation.
That looks like a constellation. I really like a lot about Henry. I didn't love him before I knew about his deal that he made with Luke. But once I learned about that, once I figured out what the deal was, not just that he made a deal and I knew, but I didn't know yet.
Yeah.
Once I figured out what the deal was, I liked Henry a lot. I liked that Henry is described as like a collector of stories, that his life, he's like felt so much, and he doesn't want to write about himself or create something. He like wants to collect stories. And that for that to be his like ultimate role in Addie's life, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
That's something that paid off for me.
I liked that Henry making the decision that he would have actually died or suffered from greatly and would have regretted that he got that second chance, because he saw, oh God, when you get the thing you think you want, it is, I mean, how many movies and books are based off of this? This is what you think you want, your wish comes true, and then it's not all it's made out to be. And the fact that she is able to make a sacrifice that allows him to get that second chance and him to fully utilize it and push himself every day to get better but not be too hard on himself and just truly live. I thought that was very, very beautiful. That's my favorite part.
My favorite part is that too, that Addie and Luke.
Do I want to read a whole book about it?
No. But that Addie and Luke do truly save Henry's life.
Yeah.
It's beautiful writing that he's like, he tells her, the lie is that he, like, Luke gave him a lifetime.
Right.
When it's a
Which
year.
clearly he did not.
He didn't.
Which I knew that.
He didn't. But that because his life was going to end that night, it was a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah, that's true.
even more than he was going to get.
Yeah.
Because he was in such a bad place.
And now I feel just
Addie.
unhappy thinking about it again.
I know.
I don't know why. It just puts me in a bad mood. Like, it's very beautiful. I am excited to read more VE Schwab books. But again, too, it's like, this is not a book I would have picked up based off of the description. This is not the type of book I typically go for. I purely went for it because it was so highly recommended and it's an author I like.
Agreed. And a lot of people told me that the hype was not overhyped.
Yeah.
And that I would love it. And I didn't. But that's okay. Again, everyone can have their own opinion. If you don't agree with us, I'm sorry we trashed your book for a while.
Yeah.
But
it is.
it's just it is and it is what it is, and it do what it do.
Yeah. So I think that's it for us today. So thanks for watching. Until next time.
Until next time, stay ancestry.
Bye.